Hey there, everyone. Welcome to the show. I almost hit that damn mute button. Almost forgot to hit that damn mute button. Hey there, everyone. Welcome to the show. We're doing our the live stream here on Survivalist Prepper. And then after this, we're also going to be doing one over at the Deffendale YouTube channel. So that link is below. But here, what we want to do is we found this article talking about the article is titled Lies That Preppers Tell About Bug Out Bags. And I thought it was a pretty cool article. And I want to go over some of the stuff in here. It's from the SeasonedCitizenPrepper.com website. And it's pretty cool. There are some things that I agree with, some things that I don't. And that's why I want to go over this and see what our thoughts are on all this. Because like he says in the beginning of this article, you go to Google and you just type in bug out bag or whatever. You're going to try to get sold a whole bunch of crap. Literally crap, those $100 kits that have one of everything in it that you'll ever need in any disaster situation. But if you have to use it more than once, you're screwed. Or it's got the articles that are written for Google, basically, that are going to give you the main talking points about bug out bags. So I want to go through a few of these. Before we get into that, though, what's up, Brian?
Not much, man. Looking forward to this. It's always fun to talk about bug out bags.
Yeah, we haven't talked about bug out bags a lot, with our new podcast, the Deffendale Show. But it's kind of fun to go back to the basic stuff, kind of. And this is kind of cool because it's not what do you need in your bug out bag. This is talking about why you would need this, why you wouldn't need that, and all that stuff. So very cool. Like I said,
do you think it's really lies, man, that people are telling, or is it just? I think a lot of preppers, we like to have some tall tales around the campfire.
Yeah, that may be a little bit of a clickbaity headline, but and you know what? It's kind of true as well, though, because a lot of preppers regurgitate. A lot of these prepping websites just kind of regurgitate what the other websites have said over and over and over again. So, it is somewhat true, yeah. But I think it's also just the misconceptions and all of that, and people just getting into preparedness or kind of read this stuff and go, oh man, I got to have all this crap. And the truth is, you really don't. So,
well, and what every fiction novel out there that has to do with preppers pretty much has some sort of bugging out happening, right? And so,
yeah.
I mean, you got the Franklin Horton series, Chris Weatherman series, Steve Bird, all of them, right? They all have some sort of bug out. You got to get from this place. And what happens when you bug out? Stuff happens along the way. So it's I think it's one of those things that's always in our face as far as preppers. And we always think, like, what if I have to get out of my house? But that leads into some of the lies that, according to the article, right?
Yeah. And honestly, it depends. It's situation dependent. It's dependent on your personal situation and the disasters and all of that stuff. So after this, we're gonna end this about a quarter after, maybe a little bit more, and then we're gonna go over to Deffendale. We're gonna start our show over there at 5:30, depending on what time zone you're in. In my time zone, it's 5:30, and we're gonna talk about why preppers are kind of labeled crazy and how maybe in my opinion anyway, they're the crazy ones. We're not the crazy ones, but that'll be a fun one too. You've got an article over at mindforsurvival.com. We're gonna kind of go over. That should be pretty cool. But let's go ahead and get into a few of these bullet points here with this article. And it starts off talking about how, kind of like I said, where it's you Google something and you're getting, all these prepackaged kits, and you're not getting the real information that you would need about bug out bags and what you would need in your bug out bag. This may be a little bit tough to read. So I don't know how much I'm going to keep this on the screen, but I just want to go through some of these real quick, and then we'll switch back off of this. Like I said, the link's below, so if you can't really read this, just grab that link and open it in a new tab in your browser, and you can kind of follow along. But the first lie, which is your bug out bag needs to sustain you off the grid. And basically, in this paragraph, he's talking about how people tend to think that your bug out bag, you need something that if it, like one of those books you were talking about, right? Where you're going to be hoofing it, and you're 3, 4, 5, 10 days on the road, and most of the time, I mean, I guess there's situations where that could be true, right? Most of the time, though, you're talking about max maybe having to spend the night somewhere. So it's not something that, you've got to have 4 days worth of food and you've got to have, 3 gallons of water and stuff like that. It's basically, if you're in most situations, and they talk about this in the other ones too, most of the time, maybe you're in your car, maybe you're walking, maybe now the exception to all of this would be an EMP, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, if you're, and that's what everybody thinks about, like, everything's broken down and I got to hoof it. If, I don't know, if society's collapsed and you got to hoof it, you're going to be in trouble. But I think everybody, when we go to hoof it, like the first thing we do is like, hey, is my car there? Can I drive?
Yeah.
It's a lot easier. Yeah. And let's face it, most preppers aren't exactly on the young side of the life spectrum, man. So, a bunch of old farts like us have this idea, like, I'm gonna go out there and walk, and and I'm gonna carry my stuff, and I'm gonna do this stuff like Morgan and A Americans books and stuff like that. I don't think so, man. I think you have to plan and prepare to take the least amount of put the least amount of damage on your body, and to conserve as much energy as possible. So that doesn't include necessarily walking with a big heavy backpack on your back. Yeah.
And, I guarantee you, we could do it. I mean, I could do it, but that initial, say it was a 5-day trek or something like that. That initial stage of that 5-day trek would suck ass. I mean,
if you haven't been carrying heavy weight on your back for a while, I mean, and all of a sudden you try to do it, how far are you going to get each day where one, your feet aren't that tough, right? So you bang up your feet and you end up getting blisters. Well, now you're limiting how far you can walk. So, there's all kinds of things. Do you walk till you get a hot spot? And then you stop for the day? What's your plan? You could ease into it over time, but then we're talking about, well, why are you bugging out? What are you getting away from? And how fast are you going to get away from it? So, because I imagine on the bright side of things, preppers would probably be earlier to the show of bugging out than most people, because they tend to be more aware about this stuff. But how much time do you have before everybody else decides it's like not safe where you came from? So they're bugging out too. So are you able to put miles on the road? Are you able to put time on the road? That's key. Time and distance from an event or from a dangerous place or situation. That's your money card right there. So.
Yeah. And Chuck said in the chat too here, Chuck Young, hey Chuck, what's going on? He said, experience is the best teacher. Take your gear out and go into the field. And that will help you with it, basically how much you have to carry. Or just the fact that if you are carrying all this crap, you do actually know how to use it. We talk about the simple stuff like a ferro rod and stuff like that all the time, mag bars and all the cool crap that preppers need to carry. But if you don't know how to use all that stuff, it's just extra weight that you don't need to have. So yeah, get out there, figure out what you're going to need. Also, think about, I've got an article over at Survivalist Prepper that I linked to below too, which kind of goes through a lot of this stuff as well. We're not going to go into a lot of detail about this, but it talks about, considerations, being realistic, understanding your environment, having a plan, and the survival skills like we were just talking about. So all of that stuff, it really should play a big factor in what you put in your bug out bag, not something that you read on the first page of Google or something like that. All of that stuff should play a big factor in what you put in there, because, if you can't use it, it's kind of pointless. Or if you're not going to need it because of your environment or whatever, and you're just going by a list, it's kind of just a waste of time, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and Chuck had it, when he said experience is the best teacher, that's 100% the deal. And, in the chat, Misanthrope says, he buries gear and food in underground caches en route to my bug out location. That's a great idea. I think sometimes we think of bugging out, and I've always have it in my mind, not as like some sort of backpacker, but more as like a military guy carrying a rucksack, like an infantry guy carrying a rucksack. And if you spend any time in the infantry, what you will know is you carried a lot of shit as a young guy and a lot of heavy stuff. So the notion of doing that now, I mean, our rucksacks were 70, 80, 90 pounds, depending on what your position was in the platoon. And, most of the time you hear trying to keep it under 30 pounds type of stuff. Well, what are you carrying for 30 pounds, And if you go above that, well, the reason why you're trying to keep it below 30 pounds is to keep it light. So like Misanthrope said, if you know your bug out route and know certain areas that you're going to have to go through, maybe you do put some cache stuff down there. You can do some long-term storage, bear it, and bury it and use it like geocaching. This is where I'm going, and know you have those supplies en route. That's a huge advantage for people. But again, that takes planning and preparedness, right? That takes what Chuck was alluding to, actually sitting down and thinking about what you're doing before you do it and getting the experience to see what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing before we move on to the bugging out on foot thing, he's got in here, this is something that I disagree with, and this is just my personal opinion, but he said it's in here, according to your bug out bag doesn't need to have snares and a giant fixed blade knife. I'll go with the snares thing, but my knife, I have a Rat 5, and it goes with me everywhere. I'm taking my knife. I don't care what the situation is. A knife is such a useful tool that I think a fixed blade knife, not just a pocket knife or whatever, but a knife is such a useful tool regardless of what the situation is. My knife's going with me. So,
yeah, one little thing that I used to do when I was in the Army was I obviously carried a fixed blade knife on me, but I also had a little folding Gerber pocket knife. Mm-hmm. And I kept it 550 corded in my pocket, and it was up to my belt loop. So whenever I was working on something, cutting something, cutting open MRE bags, cutting 550 cord or something along those lines, I used that whenever possible, because I would rather wear the blade down and beat that little tiny Gerber up than my expensive fixed blade knife. Yeah. But when he says, don't carry snares, I get it. And if you're somebody who knows what you're doing with that stuff and you're going to a place and you think like, okay, well, you know what? I don't think I'm going to eat off this, but maybe this is something, extra that I can use to supplement myself, because you're going to your bug out location. I don't know whatever the case is. I wouldn't say no to anything. Yeah. What I would say is no to anything that is not good for your situation, right? Like everybody needs to, going back to Chuck's comment, everybody needs to gain experience by actually doing it. And it's over time of doing it that you find out what you need and what specific needs you have for your mission, for your situation, for your bug out location, or whatever you're doing. So,
yeah. And the thing with the snares, I mean, that stuff's light enough, but if you don't know how to set a snare, I guess you can take the stuff just in case, but if you're just going to go out there and throw some wire on a tree and hope a squirrel or something goes through it and it actually gets stuck, good luck.
Well, and that's the other side of it, right? If you're bringing wire, and thinking, I might snare something. Well, some wire is good for multiple things. There's different uses you could use out of it, So understanding, again, it's really about understanding what you need, what your situation calls for.
Yeah. Like Patrick said in the chat too, the more skills you have, the less crap you need. Absolutely.
Yeah. Right. That's a good one. I like that.
Yeah. Number 2 here this is a big one too. This is, you'll be carrying your bug out bag on foot. And it is kind of a lie. I think it's more of an over exaggeration. There's a lot of disaster situations. If at all possible, I'm in my truck. I don't care what's happening. I'm in my truck or a car or, whatever. I'm going to do what I can to stay off hoofing it, basically. And again, that goes to the one thing that could change all of that is an EMP, depending on if it affects your cars or just the traffic jams and stuff like that, where maybe to do what you need to do, you would have to hoof it. But the odds are you're talking, like I said in the beginning, you're talking about an overnight thing. Having that stuff in there to basically survive the night, get through the night as comfortably as possible. But for the most part, we're not going to be hoofing it. Especially the older we're going to be thinking of different ways to not hoof it.
Dude, I'm looking at one of those battery operated electric mountain bikes right now. Like that'd save my ass. I get a little solar panel with it. Maybe I never have to walk again.
Yeah.
But no, I think that's important. I think one thing too, man, when we talk bug out bags, and I'm not into all these different bags in the prepper community, the inch bag and this bag, but if you want to come up with a term using the inch bag, I'm never coming home bag, right? And we're going to talk about that when we talk about the crazy prepper segment, all the terms we use. Yeah. But I think most people, or a lot of people, when they think about the whole bugging out thing, they're thinking about like, I'm never coming back home again, and you hear that when people say, if I leave my house, I'm never coming back to it. No, that's wrong. I bailed out of Vegas at the beginning of the coronavirus just because I didn't know what was going to happen with Las Vegas. I went back home later on. It was several months later, but still went back home. But I think that people have that illusion that it's like, this bag is I'm never coming home, as opposed to, in my mind, a bug out bag is the bag I keep in the hall closet with like the stuff like you said that I can go and stay overnight, maybe 3 nights somewhere, whatever that is, but I can leave. I have some clothes in there. I have some extra cash. I have some creature comforts that when I end up somewhere, I'm not just like sitting there, in my Ranger panties with nothing going on going, hey, what do I got? What do I have? This way I can grab that bag and go. And it's more like, to me, it's an overnight bag that I can carry if, I guess the worst happens.
Yeah. I've thought about, and I haven't pulled the trigger on this yet, but for the last couple of years, I've thought about, you can get those mini bikes. Basically they're for kids or all that, but they're EMP proof basically, just because they're so simple. The way they're put together, that would be something that would be kind of cool, because I can put that in the bed of my truck. And if I had to say there was some sort of traffic jam or something like that, hop on that sucker, maybe me and Lisa riding on a little mini bike. But it would be better than hoofing it.
Yeah.
And I think they're like $300-400, something like that. They can get pretty expensive if, you get up there, but.
Or if you cook like a little trailer up to it so you can haul some gas in it so you can get a little farther.
Yeah. But you're
going to look like Dumb and Dumber rolling down the road.
Hell yeah. That would be hilarious. But who would be the dumb one? I'd be the one getting the hell out of there, and all these people standing on the highway looking at me going, I wish I had one of those mini bikes.
Yeah, right. No, there's a lot of little bikes out there. Years ago they had the Honda 90. I think there's a lot of little different motorcycle variants that are out there you can hop onto and get you some pretty good mileage on them. And like you said, it's beats walking, and it's a hell of a lot faster.
Yeah. And like you said, I think that's what brought that to my mind when you're talking about that bike, those motorized bikes. Those could work too. I don't know how much juice those have as far as going up hills and going over rocky terrain and stuff like that. But with that, though, how many situations are going to require that I load the mini bike into my truck and bug out? And you never know.
You probably throw your freaking back out just trying to get the mini bike in the truck. You be all riding down, all gimped up, looking like a question mark.
Oh, hell
Old
no.
Pack Mule put in the chat. What's his awesome name for considering this topic, Old Pack Mule. He said, take a lesson from through hikers 3 to 5 days in the woods with what you can carry, study what they carry, add some security gear.
Yep.
Smart. That's a good way to get a foundation. If you're if you don't know what you're doing or you don't have an idea what you should carry, it's a great way to start with, go into all these prepper groups, these different groups, all these different websites. Everybody has some sort of downloadable, here's what you should put in your bug out bag thing. Grab those and see what they all have in common and, start there and throw stuff out. But I think that's a great comment by Old Pack Mule. I love that name.
Yeah. All right. Number 3 here on the list is the backpack is the most important part of the bug out bag. And what he brings up some good points here in this part, because yes, you do need a quality bag, and that is important. But if you get, like, this is kind of 2 parts of what he's going to be talking about here, but I've got this Maxpedition bag, right? It's just a small gear slinger bag. And he talks about in one of these too, you don't want to have something that you want something that's big enough. But he talked about how you don't want something that's real expensive, because you're going to be tempted to use it for other crap. So have something that is, yes, it's got to be good quality, but if it's like that bag right there, that was my EDC type bag that I used for quite a bit. But then it turned into, whenever we take camera equipment somewhere or take pictures and stuff like that, the video equipment, the camera equipment goes in there. So I take all my stuff out and so it gets used. Where your bug out bag or your everyday, whatever, kind of bag you're talking about, it should be strictly for that. And it shouldn't be something that gets ransacked and taken stuff out of. It needs to have that stuff in there when you get it. So I got a bug out bag, a Yukon Outfitters bag. The Apocalypse Facebook group actually bought it for me, chipped in, which is really cool. And it's still the one I use. It's big, but it's not huge. It doesn't have a whole lot of stuff in it, but it's a good quality bag, but it's not super. It doesn't have to be super, I guess. And that's the whole thing with the bug out bags. You want it to be good.
Well, they should be used too, right? That's the other thing. When you get a bug out bag or a backpack, it should be, obviously it's going to be new. Maybe it's a new shiny one that you bought that has great reviews and it's durable and all that, but it shouldn't be shiny for long if you're going out and walking with it and trying to do stuff with it. If you're truly carrying it in your car. And that's another thing. Make sure if you're throwing bags in your car, got to pull them out every once in a while, go through and make sure anything you have in there that's perishable isn't bad.
Yeah.
Your food, your food's going to go a lot sooner. Even if you carry just like some of those little power bars or something like that, they're going to go bad a lot quicker because you're keeping it in that, baking car. Even up in the northern environments, it gets really hot in there. So, and make sure that your stuff hasn't started decomposing. That if you have stuff, I know down where I'm at in the Southwest, if you throw your backpack in your car, you better make sure like your shoes, the glue's still good on them. It gets so hot that, you might melt some of your glue, that kind of stuff in them. So take a good inspection of your stuff every once in a while, but definitely you gotta use your stuff. And like you said, I think maybe if you buy a bug out bag, and you're going to pilfer it, buy 2 of them. Yeah. So that way you have one strictly for your bug out bag.
Yeah. Another thing with being in your car too, is I've heard some horror stories about people that, do the same thing as I do, is just it's in my truck all the time, goes with me everywhere. It getting stolen. If somebody sees it sitting on the seat, they bash out your window and steal all your crap. And there's, I don't know what the dollar value, I suppose, would be in my bug out bag, but it's got to be $400.
Yeah.
And that's not counting the bag. Bag's probably like $50-$60. But so if people will see that stuff and they don't know what's in it, but they're more than willing to bust out your window and take your crap just to see. So make sure if you got a car, put it in your trunk. If you're in a truck, like mine goes under the seat where you can't really see it. But yeah, don't just leave it. And that goes with anything. Don't leave it where shitheads can come in and check out what you got and then bust your windows open.
Yeah, that's why I love tinted windows too. It makes it real hard. As long as something's dark and when you put it on the floor of the pickup truck, it's hard to see. With a pickup truck, what I did, with my old truck, I haven't got one for the new truck I got. But for my old truck, I had one of those tonneau covers on it, but that were made out of aluminum and like insulated with styrofoam that lock. Mm-hmm. Now, if you know what you're doing, there's a way you can get in there. Basically, you can go in underneath the gasket. That's a tailgate, and you can pull the latch and get the tonneau covers up. But most people, it kind of, unless they know what they're doing, they're not going to really get into it. So it makes a really good kind of lockable space that you can keep your backpack in the back of your truck, and so in the bed of your truck. And that's what I've done for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to skip through a couple of these because we're, and again, for anybody that just joined and didn't hear me in the beginning, we're going to be going over to the Duffendale YouTube channel and talking about crazy preppers over there, why we get labeled crazy preppers. But that link is below. But I want to get through a couple of these before we get out of here. We still got 10, 15 minutes, but number 7 here is the tinfoil emergency blanket in your bug out bag is good enough. And I see this all the time. And you know what? I'm guilty too. I probably got 10 or 15 of those little blankets because they're so cheap. They're so light. But if you, like we talked about, your bag should probably be able to help you get through a night as comfortably as possible. If you're depending on one of those little solar blankets, good luck. I mean, yes, they're better than nothing, but that's just about all they're worth, is just a little bit more than nothing.
Yeah, you can go on Amazon now and you can find, I think Soul makes some, and there's some other companies that make them that now they're getting thicker and they'll have like a back on them. They're still lightweight, still really packable, but they're a little bit more to them. And so I think a lot of people do grab those and think like, yeah, this is going to work. Hey, it might keep you a little bit warmer and it's good for reflecting heat and all that off of fire. But at the same time, it gets back down to the rule of threes, right? 3 seconds without situational awareness for 0.3 of a second, or even lower than that. That you get up to the 3 hours without shelter, right? Where you can freeze to death. You can die from that without having shelter for 3 hours. So making sure that you have the ability to truly keep yourself warm and to keep yourself also out of the sun. You could use 550 cord to rig up some sort of tarp where you could hold that little shiny silver space blanket over you, but it's still going to be not the greatest to keeping the sun off you. So think about keeping the sun off you and keeping you warm. Is huge when you're looking for that shelter stuff. Yeah,
Kevin gave me one of these blankets a little while back. It's I don't know if it's not going to zoom, it's not going to focus on that, but it's an EMS Blizzard blanket, which is kind of cool. But even that, you might want something a little bit more than that. And also you got to think about, like we were just talking about earlier, a lot of these situations, it may be your car, may be your shelter. So figuring out how you're going to be able to heat the interior of that cab, which is going to be better than nothing. If you're outside, even just the cab alone is going to be better than nothing because it's going to retain that little bit of heat. But I mean, even tea light candles and stuff like that in there would be a decent idea. Almost live like the homeless type thing, where homeless people have kind of got that overnight thing figured out, whether they're sleeping in boxes.
They're permanently bugged out.
Yeah. I mean, they've got it figured out. So
it's our unhoused neighbors. Get it straight. Our unhoused neighbors.
Unhoused neighbors.
That's what
right.
we can say these days.
It's 2021. I forgot. We have to think
Yeah.
about words matter.
Speaking of homeless, dude. Oh, what was that?
I was just saying words matter.
Yeah, right. Well, speaking of homeless, man, I think the one that just before that on the list, hygiene and sanitation are second tier considerations in your bug out bag. That is so huge because when you're carrying that bag and you walk all day, you're going to have swamp butt.
Yeah.
Guaranteed. You're going to have swamp butt and you're going to want to wash because what swamp butt turns into after 3 or 4 days is chafing butt.
Yeah.
And that isn't cool at all, man. It's uncomfortable. It's not good for your health, all kinds of things. So making sure that you have a wash rag, a little bar or two of soap, some water, some way to wash yourself. And everybody talks about the handy wipes and those are good. But I'll tell you, man, throwing some water on you and washing off your face and nether regions and cleaning yourself up, it makes you feel good and it lifts your morale. Because if you're walking, you're probably not in the greatest of mood. I mean, you're leaving for a reason. We talked about that, right? Something bad's going on where you live and you got all your shit. Now you got a backpack on and you're heading out. There's a reason that's happening. So you're going to need a morale booster. So making sure and brushing your teeth feels really good when you have nothing else going on.
Yeah. Yeah. I was thinking when I was reading that, I was like, yeah, I can see the ass part of it because that could be a major pain in the ass, literally. The brushing your teeth, the deodorant, I was like, okay, that is kind of secondary to me. But yeah, that you're because if you're walking 40, even just 40 miles, once that everything starts rubbing together and chafing and you're in a world of hurt. Same thing goes with your feet. And I think that's one he mentions in here too. You got to take care of your feet, have good shoes because once those go, if you've got your ass and feet on fire, you're not going anywhere.
Well, and this gets back into the glamour thing and people doing the lone wolf thing, right? Part of the thing with your feet is you need to stop every once in a while and take your boots off and let your feet air out, let your boots air out. You can maybe get away with that at night, but if you're walking a lot during the day, man, it's a good idea, especially if you haven't done it in a while, to stop, let your feet air out. Now, dry them off, bring the foot powder. That stuff is super important because remember, if you're bugging out and you're planning on walking, that's your mode of transportation. You got to take care of your feet.
Yeah, moleskin. I have a bunch of moleskin in my bag too. That he's got in here also extra set of clothing, socks, stuff like that, and the underwear even with the hygiene part of it. All of that stuff matters, and even the warmth. Maybe it's that extra set of clothes, and the sun's going down, and you're throwing everything you've got on, basically to stay warm through the night. So.
Yeah. No, and it's good. I mean, you get if you're going to stop somewhere for a while and you could, after a few days, if you're in one pair of pants, again, we're getting back to the chafing and the hygiene thing, man. If you can take those pants and wash them out a little bit, let them air out, they'll get you a lot farther.
Yeah. One more here, maybe two more. He talks about the important documents are second tier items. And this is one I am guilty of not because I think they're second tier, but just because I haven't really thought about it. But it absolutely makes sense when you think about not every disaster scenario is a Mad Max type situation. So bugging in, bugging out, all of those things, you may be talking about a 24-hour time period. So that stuff is important. Having little flash drives with a lot of that, maybe just copies of that important information on it, because you just never know what's going to happen. And it's something that I just don't, because I just haven't. But it absolutely makes sense.
I mean, if things are bad enough and you lose everything, well, at least you have them backed up. So I think a thumb drive is good. I think part of the problem is you have people like, oh, no, I'll pack these papers with me. Hey, man, papers take up space. They take up weight. And it's just not a good idea. There's other things you can bring that if you're going to carry the weight and take up that space, that would probably do you a lot better than having a backup of every piece of paper that I have, every important document that I have. Again, like you said, the thumb drive, that works good. Email them to yourself. If you have a secure email account some way, email them, keeping them there so you can log in somewhere else and have them. But people, like he mentions here, if you're thinking about carrying your emergency binder with you, you're probably wrong.
Yeah. Okay, last one here, number 11. And this is one I disagree with for the most part, but I see his point. And it's okay to use your bug out bag for bug out bag gear for camping. And while I don't want to say that, yeah, because the more you do that, I've done it before. The more you do that, the more the stuff gets left out and if you're not real good about putting everything back and all of that, I'd say I agree with that. But you need to practice with your tools and stuff. So if that does mean bringing that bug out bag and using the stuff that's in that bug out bag, or maybe, using buying a second set of stuff and using that stuff. But like my Rat 5, my knife, I want to use that knife because I want to get comfortable with that knife. So there are things that, yes, I think you need to use that stuff. Otherwise, it's just kind of worthless. But at the same time, you need to make sure your bug out bag is fitted and ready to go at a moment's notice. So you can't just take that camping and throw it all over the place and have the kids going through it. And then, all of a sudden something happens and, what you thought you had in there, you don't have in there.
Yeah. Well, if you're a true car camper, and you go somewhere, you should probably have, a bag that you throw in the back of your car to work out of, and maybe lights or whatever you have already in your car. You could throw your bug out bag in there and use it. Practice. I mean, that's great use. Actually use it. But the thing is, when you get back, if that's your sole bug out bag and your plan is I want to be ready 24/7, 365, then as soon as you get back, you need to restock it and refit that bug out bag. It's like the first thing you do, and get it back ready again. And if you're going backpacking, well, try using your bug out bag. That's what we were talking about, that experience earlier.
Yeah.
That's how you get that experience. And living out of your bag, you'll find out if you camp for a weekend with out of your bug out bag, you'll find out what some stuff is that you probably don't need and stuff that you're like, wow, I wish I had more of that. Do that a few times and you'll come away with a pretty good kit that's set up based upon your experience and what works best for you. Yep.
Just make sure that it's, after you're done doing that stuff, make sure it's ready to go.
Yeah.
Real quick, I wanted to mention that I mentioned it earlier, but this article I have over at Survivalist Prepper, it goes through quite a bit of stuff. So if you are just starting out with preparedness, or you just want to get an idea about all this stuff, it goes through different things that you would need in there. And a lot of it we talked about with this other article. Goes through water, it goes through first aid supplies, it goes through some self-defense stuff, clothing and warmth, navigation, communication, shelter, all that stuff, miscellaneous stuff. And yes, my fixed blade knife is on there. But it's a very cool article, something I actually put quite a bit of time into that. I'm a little bit biased, but I do like the article. So, but that link is below. But I think now we're gonna head over to the Duff and Dale channel, and we're gonna talk about some reasons that preppers. We kind of get labeled as crazy, but I don't think, I think it's the other people that are crazy. And it's weird that we kind of go through these. I don't want to take the whole show on this show, but it's weird that, just 6 months ago, you saw this pivot to where people were talking about, hey, maybe preppers aren't all that bad. And now it's like that shift back. It's like the tides, right? It comes in and it goes out. And now it's back to, and maybe not just preppers, but like those people that don't conform to the norms are getting labeled as the whack jobs again. So
I'm going to coin a term right now, maybe. And so I think this is like, I think everybody has to give me a nickel, maybe a half a penny, or actually 0.0001 Bitcoin if you use this. So I think it's like fair weather survivalists, right? That's what we just sort of got hit with. Oh yeah, this is like, yeah, we need to get into this stuff. And then now it's like, well, maybe I'm not going to die right now. Oh, you're all crazy again.
Yeah. Now that everything's okay again, never mind. You guys were wrong.
You know what? Hey man, I would love for more people to be better prepared. But I kind of like the people in the prepper community by and large. And it's kind of like growing up a Green Bay Packers fan. And then when Brett Favre came along, they started winning. All of a sudden, all these other people showed up. And it's like, hey, who the hell are you?
Yeah. So. It's like preppers are playing chess and regular people are just playing checkers. We're constantly thinking 3-4 steps ahead. And they're just like, oh, what's next? Okay, nothing. Okay, time to go watch TV.
Yeah, right.
But anyway, I don't want to get too deep into that. If you guys want to join that conversation, the link is in the description below. We're going to head over to Duff and Dale. Make sure if you're not subscribed over there, subscribe over there. We do videos every Friday night, and quite actually a little bit longer than we're going to do tonight. Those are usually about an hour and a half. We also have our podcast, which is if you just go to Stitcher, iTunes, whatever you use to listen to podcasts, we have the Duff and Dale Show. Just search for that. But I appreciate everyone joining in on the chat. And if you head over to Duff and Dale, we'll see you there. But until next time, we'll talk to y'all later.
See y'all.